Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. A San Diego law firm has filed a class action lawsuit against Immigration and Customs Enforcement, arguing that federal agents are breaking the law when they arrest asylum seekers at immigration court. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis spoke to one of the lawyers.
Would you turn around, sir? You don't need to touch my client.
It was a shocking scene back in May when masked ICE agents arrested asylum seekers at the immigration court downtown. Since then, the previously unthinkable practice has become commonplace. It also may be illegal, according to Kimberly Hutchison, a San Diego civil rights lawyer.
The main ask is for what's called a declaratory judgment. We're asking the judge to declare that the agency's behavior is unlawful.
Her law firm, Singleton Schreiber, filed a class action lawsuit last week on behalf of 2 asylum seekers who ICE agents arrested in the hallway outside their courtroom.
They don't have any criminal history or anything else to indicate that they're a danger to the community. So these are like the quintessential people that can be trusted to remain out in the community.
The lawsuit argues that these arrests violate the rights of asylum seekers and delegitimize the legal process.
You can't just take away someone's liberty without giving the process to determine whether that's an appropriate decision. And so they're doing it across the board, and that's a violation of due process.
ICE officials did not respond to questions about the lawsuit. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Meanwhile, San Diego County wants to ensure any children detained by immigration enforcement have legal representation in court. The county board is expected to vote on an expansion of its immigrant legal defense fund today. Board chair Tara Lawson-Remer is pushing for it. She says hundreds of kids lost legal representation after the Trump administration cut federal funding. But Supervisor Jim Desmond says he'd rather see the money go toward other things.
Imagine that there's a kid, there's 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds who have to stand in front of a judge, and how are they supposed to articulate their rights?
They can have due process, but I don't think local San Diegans should have to pay for their legal fees.
Unaccompanied minors are more than 7 times likelier to get a ruling that lets them stay in the U.S. when they have a defense. Right now, the county spends about $5 million on the program. Lawson-Remer says making kids eligible won't cost the county any more money.
Well, temperature-wise, we're getting down into the upper 60s for tonight. The marine layer, that obviously along the coast will continue to bring us those low clouds and fog, but we're going to continue to see that marine layer deepen the next day or two, so especially those of you in the Inland Empire, don't be surprised if you see some low clouds, some fog late into the evening, first thing in the morning, maybe a little bit of a drizzle. I'll talk about exactly what to expect for the rest of the week coming up.
San Diego County is set to conduct 2 studies that might reveal broader consequences of the Tijuana River sewage crisis. KPBS environment reporter Tammy Murga says one will focus on impacts to public health and the other on the economy.
So next up, we have item 17, enhancing regional efforts and federal advocacy to advance solutions to the Tijuana River sewage crisis.
San Diego County supervisors unanimously agree. More can be done now to protect residents and the economy from the ongoing threats of the Tijuana River sewage crisis. That's why officials directed staff to study how long-term exposure to sewage pollution affects people's health and how bad the crisis has strained businesses, regional tourism, and property values.
To fully understand the scale of this crisis and, more importantly, to take effective action, we must ground our decisions in rigorous science and evidence-based data.
Newly elected Supervisor Paloma Aguirre has called for these studies and other measures in recent years while serving as Imperial Beach's mayor. She promised to fast-track them while campaigning. It will likely be a while before the county releases any results from these studies. Specifics like costs have yet to be determined. But researchers like Paula Stigler-Granados of San Diego State University say a well-designed epidemiological study is long overdue.
People shouldn't have to work in a polluted environment. Their kids are getting sick. We have the evidence. We need interventions to help this to stop and to understand the long-term impacts.
The county will also assess what it will take to fix the Tijuana River hotspot. It's an area where scientists say the largest source of toxic gases and chemicals is becoming airborne. Tammy Murga, KPBS News.
The Veterans Affairs Secretary is in San Diego today to recognize local staff members and tour the VA Medical Center. KPBS military and veterans reporter Andrew Dyer has more.
Visiting San Diego today, Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins says VA San Diego is one of the agency's best.
We have 170 VAMCs across the country, and this is one in which we can point to and say, this is one that is doing it right. This is one that actually is getting a lot done. And
Collins has been a controversial leader at the agency. His plan to lay off 80,000 VA employees sparked protests from veterans groups and was canceled this summer. Collins says, though, by the end of this fiscal year, they'll achieve a lower goal of 30,000 fewer staffers without layoffs.
Nobody's been laid off and nobody's been fired. Our reduction came from those who took retirement, voluntary retirement.
The VA's Inspector General said last month the agencies had a 50% increase in severe occupational staffing shortages, with 80% of VA facilities reporting severe nurse shortages. The report came out just as the Trump administration canceled the union contracts for more than 400,000 VA staffers. Collins says staff shouldn't feel less supported despite the loss of those collective bargaining rights.
We value our employees more than anything else. We want them to have a work environment which they want to be at. So if their connection was more to the union than to the VA, then that's an issue that they would have to deal with.
National Nurses United, a union representing 16,000 VA nurses, calls the move union busting and accuses the administration of trying to privatize veteran care. Collins says critics are trying to mislead veterans.
What's happened is there's a lot of folks out there who have gotten used to the system being the system. They've invested in a system in which they like it to feel like that they're being useful in other ways. And so they tell stories that are designed, frankly, I believe, to mislead veterans.
Collins also talked about the VA's commitment to disabled veterans and its adaptive sports programs, saying there's no plan to cut or change them.
For any of our disabled veterans who are going through getting an opportunity to do clinics like that, whether it be winter, summer, wheelchair games, warrior games, we're going to be there to support that, and I'm not going to let anybody take that back because I see what the value of it is.
VA San Diego serves about 150,000 veterans across San Diego and Imperial counties. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
It's being billed as a solutions showdown. Voice of San Diego's annual PolitiFest is slated for Saturday, October 4th at the University of San Diego. Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis spoke with KPBS's Amitha Sharma to spotlight what's on tap for this year's Political Public Summit.
So, Scott, this year's PolitiFest is called Solutions Showdown. What does that mean, and why did you decide to format it that way?
Well, we normally have a bunch of panels, right? Discussions and speeches and such. And what we really wanted to do this time is focus on the problems and confront the problems, but offer solutions. So we're asking every panelist now to give a presentation on what they would do to solve the problem that their panel's about. And then we're going to have them debate it, discuss it after a little bit of moderated discussion, and then an actual vote. We're going to have the live audience and the audience online vote on which one they think was the best solution for that. At the end of the day, we'll have a little gathering of all of the winners and see what the best solution presented that day was.
What might be some of the local issues that solutions will be discussed on, and what might those solutions entail?
That's a great question. So one of them will be the crisis in the Tijuana River Valley, right? The sewage crisis. We want to hear from solutions. We've heard about the problems at length, ad nauseum. But what are some things we could hope for to happen? I think a lot of those solutions are very expensive, infrastructure improvements south of the border, but there's one guy who has an idea to build a jetty all the way out into the ocean to block it. Childcare crisis. What are we going to do about the access and affordability of childcare? KPBS is helping us with that one. The cost of electricity. There's a guy who's going to propose that the city or a nonprofit associated with the city take over what SDG&E does here in San Diego. And then there's a couple other people who have more market-based solutions that are going to present it. So I think it's a real chance for people to grapple with these problems that we're all worried about. But we're really looking forward to the hope that solutions discussions offer.
So there is a ton of political cynicism out there for obvious reasons. What do you hope people take away from PolitiFest this year, and what do you hope elected officials get from it?
Well, I think people will get hope, honestly. I think that we're really good at Voice of San Diego at talking about the problems. And I think people get like, oh, man, here they go again. There's another big problem we have to deal with. We believe San Diego is strong enough to face its biggest problems. So I think it's just a chance to hope, because solutions are kind of fun. Like, problems are tough. Problems make you worry. Solutions actually make you hopeful.
PolitiFest has been going on since 2011, so this is, 14 years now?
Yeah, we missed a couple of years here and there, but we used to not do it on election years or off election years, and now we do it every year.
So how has PolitiFest evolved over the years?
Well, you might remember the first few, we were doing them in Liberty Station in a park. We had a dunk tank. We had, it was supposed to be kind of a festival with a little politics aside. Now we realize most people just wanted to see the debates and the panel discussions, and that's what we focus on now. So it's a day-long discussion and a chance. And this, we think, kind of gamifies it a little bit, adds a little bit of interest and competition, because we do want people to focus on the future. And so we'll see if this works. I think people are excited about it.
There is widespread belief that civic discourse is unwell in this country. Do you think that PolitiFest disputes that or contradicts that?
I think local disputes that. I think there is a lot of cynicism out there, and I think there is a lot of reason for despair, frankly. But I think local politics, local public affairs, local journalism is a chance to kind of break through that, because we can see each other, we can talk to each other, we can humanize each other. We can go up to the mayor or the Board of Supervisors or the Congress members here, and we can see that they're real people and have to deal with them, right or wrong, and on the things that they're excited about or advocating for. We can see potholes, and we can see schools. We can see and tangibly deal with the things that we're talking about. I think that's a lot easier for a civic discourse to happen as compared to a national discourse where you can't meet the people, you can't humanize them, and you can't even really conceive the problems as well. And so that's the advantage we have locally, but also the mandate we have to make sure we take advantage of that and force people to talk about what they're going to do to make this a better place.
Scott Lewis, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It's always an honor. Thanks for having me.
A lot has changed in the first year of our Public Matters project. We're bringing together reporters from KPBS, Voice of San Diego, and iNews Source for a live Q&A on September 24th. We want to hear your questions about housing, political participation, and the local impacts of federal policy. You can submit them at the link on your screen, kpbs.org/Democracy Day 2025.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, a major downward revision to the jobs numbers adds to economic uncertainty. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A high school student ended up spending 2 months in a detention facility after ICE agents detained him. It was part of a larger effort meant to target day laborers. He told reporter Maricela de la Cruz what it was like on the inside.
July 17th, a date etched in 18-year-old Selvin's memory. Masked Border Patrol agents carried out immigration operations across Sacramento, detaining 11 people. Selvin was among those detained, not part of the Home Depot, but instead as he was making his way to a nearby Ross clothing store. Selvin told KCRA he was thrown to the ground and taken into custody by federal immigration immigration agents. He says he remained detained for nearly 2 months.
Pues ahí estuvimos encerrados, pues con el aire puesto, hacía mucho frío y nada más nos tiraron en el suelo con un aluminio nos dieron para tapar. Pues teníamos mucho frío y también hambre, nada más un burrito nos dieron de frijol.
For Selvin's family in Sacramento, his detention came as a shock.
Supuestamente arrestando criminales, pero es que los criminales nunca van a andar ahí buscando trabajo. Sí, la gente está allí, la gente está trabajando, la gente está buscando trabajo. Justo yo en casi 22 años, yo anduve buscando trabajo ahí también.
Selvin, a student at Valley High School, arrived in Sacramento in 2024 after fleeing violence in Guatemala.
¿Te viniste solo tú de Guatemala?
Sí.
¿Por qué te viniste?
Pues venía huyendo y me lastimaron pues el ojo, entonces no quería que me pasara algo más o que me mataran.
Because he was a minor when he arrived, he was allowed to stay with family in Sacramento. He says he's been in an asylum process ever since and never imagined he'd be caught up in an immigration enforcement operation targeting day laborers in South Sacramento.
Simplemente agarran gentes inocentes que también andan trabajando y dejan a sus hijos solos. Me encontré con varios señores y ellos estaban llorando diciendo que pues dejaron a sus hijos pequeños.
During his detention, Selvin says he was held with 64 other individuals, and as weeks passed, he and others became ill.
Pues me dio calentura y me dolía todo el cuerpo. Me sentía como débil. Pasé como 2 semanas durmiendo.
Now, roughly a week after his release, Selvin is preparing to return to school, but with concerns.
Y regresas con un billete a la escuela.
Pues eso quería ver, pero pues para quitármelo, porque si no en la escuela, pues ya veas, pueden pensar mal.
Selvin's next immigration hearing is scheduled for the end of the week.
The San Diego City Council unanimously approved an $875,000 payout today to a man alleging excessive force by police. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers spoke with the man's attorney about the outcome.
On the night of October 24th, 2024, San Diego police officers responded to what they describe as a domestic violence call involving a handgun. A local videographer captured what happened during their response. It shows then 31-year-old Marcus Evans walking out of a house shirtless with his hands raised, responding to officers. Later, police shoot Evans with 3 beanbag shotgun rounds, then release a police canine that bit him repeatedly. His legal team has reached an $875,000 settlement with the city related to allegations of excessive force from the incident. The city council approved the payout unanimously. In a written statement, Evans' attorney Dante Pride said, "While we both agree that the settlement amount is not enough for the ordeal he faced, Mr. Evans decided to take a discount so that he can move on with his life and not face 3 years or more of litigation." Police never found a gun or booked Evans into jail, according to Pride. He said Evans' injuries included a wound on his shin, bruised rib, and he had trouble opening and closing his left hand and gripping. Pride's statement went on to say, "I think the SDPD officer's conduct was disgraceful and despicable." In a related lawsuit, the First Amendment Coalition is suing the city of San Diego to obtain all public records about the police department's use of force on Evans.
It's about public accountability for the police department. It's really about the police department's obligation to produce records where there's been a police-involved shooting.
David Snyder is executive director of the organization. He says that the city has not produced most records, like audio and video files, related to the incident.
The city has filed their answer, which is the formal responsive pleading that they're required to file, and we don't yet have a hearing date, so the lawsuit is in process.
Attorney Dante Pride says the settlement approved by the city council resolves the civil lawsuit. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
KPBS reached out to the San Diego Police Department to ask about the settlement. The department did not respond by our deadline. Police and doctors from across the county are getting the word out about e-bike safety.
We're seeing about 10 to 15-fold more injuries than we did in 2018. 2018, we saw a handful. Now we're seeing several hundred a year.
They're also warning about the difference between e-bikes and e-motorcycles, which are illegal to ride on the streets. If you're looking to buy your kid an e-bike, San Diego PD told our media partner KGTV the biggest thing to look for are these functioning pedals.
Electric motorcycles, however, have 8 to 15 times more of the power than an electric bicycle. And they can go anywhere from 46 up to even 80 miles an hour. There are people who put pedal kits on electric motorcycles to try to give it the appearance of an electric bicycle, but they are not the same.
Police say before you buy, make sure to educate yourself on whether the vehicle you're purchasing is legal, and make sure you're familiar with the rules of the road. New testing data shows reading skills among high school seniors have reached a new low. The National Assessment of Educational Progress found 12th graders and had their lowest reading scores since 1992. The test has long been the nation's most reliable. Roughly a third of seniors who were tested last year did not have basic reading skills. Seniors also had the lowest math performance since 2005. This is the first testing data released since the pandemic.
Well, overall, the marine layer is going to continue to deepen the next day or two, so especially those of you in the Inland Empire, be prepared for the low clouds, the fog, maybe a little bit of a drizzle. Otherwise, as we get into the afternoon and the evening, especially today and tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with some stronger wind gusts, mainly in our desert and mountain regions. We've started the week with a little bit of a cooling trend also for just about everybody, really. Expect that to continue as well for the next couple of days. Then we'll kind of start to warm back up. Temperature-wise tonight, we're in the low to mid 60s as we get along the coast. 67 for San Diego, 57 there in Ramona, 67 in Borrego Springs. Here's what I was talking about with the wind. So through the very early morning hours Wednesday, we do have wind advisories in effect for everybody, highlighted in purple here. Now, don't be surprised if we see a repeat of this as we head into tomorrow as well, because take a look at future wind gusts and what happens as we head into the afternoon and the evening. We're going to see more of these dark purple colors, and on this map, the darker the purple, the higher the wind gusts. So we get from the 30 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts in some areas, again, deserts, mountain regions, as we get into tomorrow afternoon and evening once again. Then we start to see some of us still dealing with stronger wind gusts, but it's not as widespread, right? So just be prepared for that. Temperature-wise tomorrow, take a look. We have the rain along the coast, 77 in Oceanside, 75 in San Diego there. We get to the 90s by the time we get to Borrego Springs. It's much sunnier as we get further inland, then of course into our desert and mountain regions, not even really dealing with the cloud cover. So overall, taking a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast, we do see the humidity along the coast for tomorrow, as well as the showers. Kind of goes hand in hand. Drier air further inland. We see temperatures not changing too much day to day along the coast. Further inland, we're going to get back to 80 by the time we get to Friday. We could see some of those showers tomorrow inland as well. But then we get to our mountain regions. It is just sunshine temperatures in the 60s across the board. We get to the upper 60s by the time we get to Sunday. Then in our deserts, we're not in the triple digits. We are down into the low 90s for your Wednesday. Then we warm back up to the mid 90s by the time we get to your Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
In its most important announcement of the year, Apple has introduced the latest version of the iPhone and other gadgets in the midst of a tug-of-war between shareholders and more cost-conscious consumers. Karen Kafa has the latest.
Apple taking a broad approach to this product announcement with a sleek, thin iPhone Air with a starting price tag of $999 and the iPhone 17 with more colors and camera features starting at $799, the same as the iPhone 16. Apple's announcement giving a sense of how they view U.S. trade policy and also the mindset of the American consumer right now.
Apple on Tuesday announcing the latest iPhone among other gadgets and trying to get consumers hyped in uncertain economic times.
iPhone Air is a total game changer.
Apple's latest gadgets land as President Donald Trump's trade wars squeeze the company's bottom line. The tech giant expects to take a $1.1 billion tariff-related hit just this quarter. And as consumers eye big-ticket purchases more carefully.
It has to be worth it for someone to say, okay, let me trade in my device and get a phone that
that costs more than $1,000.
CNET senior technology reporter Abrar Al-Hiti says Apple's recent offerings and sales have had ups and downs.
This does feel like a really critical time for Apple to stand out, whether it's, making its devices more powerful or rolling out something like a thinner iPhone. This is the time for it to say, we are still an innovative company. We are still on top of our game.
In the tariff environment, Courtney Linwall of Consumer Reports says their price tracking analysts have noticed tech companies overall taking a more conservative approach to new products.
Companies are not putting out as many new models, and those models maybe aren't taking as many leaps forward with new features, innovation. So it just seems like in general, there's a bit more perhaps conservatism and like companies are waiting to see.
As consumers, Linwall says, reason with the value of an upgrade.
Making folks feel like there's something worth it to go out and buy, something exciting to go out and buy. So I'm sure Apple is feeling that pressure.
Apple hoping features like its thinnest model ever, new colors, new camera features, faster charging, and a larger screen on the iPhone 17 get consumers excited, especially as they hold on to their smartphones for longer. Morgan Stanley estimates the iPhone replacement cycle is now about 4.7 years. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. President Trump is giving control of Washington, D.C.'s police force back to the mayor. On NPR's Morning Edition, how the military intervention has affected the economy. And KPBS Midday Edition is talking to the guy who wrote the book on Coles Mountain, or Cowles, depending, literally, what you may be surprised to learn about its history. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.